We're here at Christie's to talk about a magnificent guitar collection.
I saw my reaction when I walked in here. I've never seen these guitars all out. They lived in boxes in their guitar cases. I'd take them out kind of one by one. You know, G and I used to talk about this. You know, you take them out, you know them all. There was a reason why you wanted them to begin with. You spent time with them before you made a decision, and you felt something, and you heard their voice, you know, and started to get comfortable with their voice. And each one kind of suggests another song. You know, every guitar you pick up makes you want to play differently. I mean, they're just beautiful things.
Richard, you're known as an actor, of course. We know you also as a pianist, we know you as a guitar player. Tell me about your musical background.
I grew up in a family that there was music around all the time. My father played trumpet. My mother played the piano a little bit. We all had lessons, and I was a trumpeter when I was a kid. But we all played different musical instruments, and we all sang. So, you know, there were 5 kids in the family, so we sang 7-part harmonies, and all the music instruments were out, and we played. Guitar came later, you know, when I was a teenager. Unfortunately, I never had any lessons on either instrument, so I'm a little idiosyncratic in what I do. Technically, it's probably not right what I do, but it was the way I figured it out.
There is no right on the guitar.
Yeah. But music is still just such a strong, important, soulful part of my family's life, my life.
Do you remember your first guitar?
It was an acoustic, and I remember, my mother tells a story. There was this music shop that sold guitars near where I grew up, in the suburbs of Syracuse. And I had this thing about guitars, and I was probably 13 or 14. And I thought, guitars is where I want to go. I don't want to play trumpet anymore. I don't want to be in the marching band. I want to be cool. And there's guitar. So I'd go in there, and I saw this one guitar there, and it was like for 50 bucks. Which was not inexpensive at the time for a cheap acoustic guitar. But apparently I went in there every day after school for a month. And I kept looking at it moon-eyed and, you know, shaking my head because I didn't have 50 bucks. And finally Mrs. Camilli said to me, all right, I know you want the guitar. How much do you want to spend? 15? Will you take 15? She said, all right. Take 15. So I took a $50 bill out of my pocket and paid for the guitar. I hadn't thought about this before, but I had that guitar, which I liked a lot, and I learned how to play simple chords on it and play Bob Dylan songs, 3-chord songs on that, and started to learn how to finger pick a little bit.
You started finger picking early.
Well, I was listening to Dylan, and I was listening to the Byrds. Byrds was my first inspiration of, because it was simple enough, but it had so much stuff going on. It was super cool, great songs, great lyrics, incredible harmony. They just had a great feel about it. I can still hear the first. I bought almost all these guitars because, not because they were old, but they knew they were guitars. A guitar has to be played a lot before it just says, oh, I'm a guitar, and it starts to feel comfortable with that, and it resonates in an incredible way. They got the sound. They got the feel, and that means a lot more to me than the rest of it.
So you weren't collecting as a coin collector would collect a coin, or stamp collectors would collect stamps where you're looking for purity. You were looking for the musical soul in the instrument.
I'm trying to think if there were any guitars that I bought just because they were perfect, and, you know, from a collector's point of view.
The 335?
I wanted that guitar. Yeah. Probably Lloyd or someone like that said, look, if you want one of those, you got to call Norm. He's one of the big guys in California. And I was there shooting. I had like one day, and out of the blue, I called him. And I said, I want the most incredible 335. It's got to play great. If it looks great, fabulous. But I know it's got to have PAFs. It's got to be a real guitar. I said, I got the guitar. I said, but I'm leaving early in the morning. He said, well, this is one of those things, like at midnight, if you meet me I can meet you halfway at the shopping mall, and
do the deal in the parking lot.
It was like a deal in the parking lot. And he showed me this guitar, and it looked way too good for me, because it was so clean, you know, and a lot of these guitars, you know, they're very played, you know, they have the marks in the right places, someone who played that for.
Soul, yeah.
This is a very soulful guitar, but it's really super clean. I mean, that's
a good
That's
instrument.
an amazing guitar.
Why a 335?
Well, those PAFs are just extraordinary. And of the semi-acoustic guitars, there's nothing like it. It is it. In terms of design, sound, playability, I mean, it's the best. There's nothing you can't play with that guitar. You're a jazz guy, you can play that guitar. You're a blues guy, you play that. You're a rock guy, you can play that guitar.
Anything.
Anything on that guitar. I'm not surprised that they're worth as much as they are right now. Because they are so incredible.
And looking at this collection, there's a good representation of ES335s, all from the 50s and early 60s, and from ones with Bigsby's, ones without.
I like Bigsby's. You know, everyone's kind of snooty about it, you know.
Just remember, Neil Young's always used a Bigsby, and don't tell me he ain't stinging.
And I know, and he's like this the whole time.
Yeah.
He doesn't
wangs
stop.
on it, man. Yeah. That's the great thing about, to me, all these old guitars. We don't know where they've been. I was playing the Angelico this morning, sitting here playing it. Yeah. And I was looking at the marks on it and thinking about the guy that owned it, you know, before World War II. And what did he play on it?
You know who owned that?
No.
The Angelico.
That was
his guitar.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It's a great guitar.
And I spoke to D'Acquisto about this, and he said, you know, that was the guitar that D'Angelico had hanging in his shop all the time.
So that's in those photos of the shop, right?
When D'Angelico died, this is the only thing D'Acquisto got from him. The estate gave him this.
It's a great guitar. I
You know,
love
it's a different sound than music I would play, but you can play some blues stuff on it too. It feels a little.
Oh, yeah.
The action's pretty good on it. Not bad. A little high, but not bad.
A little high. It plays like butter now. It's playing great. And I like these early ones. I like these, you know, for me, I know a lot of guys like the great big, you know, super fancy ones. I like these early,
No, I like
beautiful
this little smaller body on it too. I like that a lot.
It's probably 1933, 34.
That's what I was going to say, 33.
Yeah. He was very inconsistent. He was consistent in numbering, but he didn't always write them in his ledger books. So there's holes.
One of the ways, and I'm not an expert on this, but the carving on the bridge is just
It's like a
great.
violin bridge.
It really is.
Yeah. Look at the
classic.
beautiful flame back on this, and beautifully married wood.
In your office, you've got a wonderful collection of books on the history of blues and early American jazz. Your passion is not only of the instruments, but it's also the historical time period in which they were used and played. Was that something also that's driving your collecting?
That was the time. Rock and blues was still happening. Certainly every guitar player that I would want to sound like somehow came up from the Delta to Chicago and
Or Memphis or somewhere.
Yeah, from somewhere south up into the cities and recorded.
Your passion was American roots music, but blues in particular, and that country blues.
Just emotional music.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
real soulful, direct, as straight as it can possibly. As Robert Johnson, I mean, still feels like it was done yesterday. It's so emotionally naked. Who would have ever thought that the slide guitar, you know, would still be touching people? But it is something, boy, it cuts right to your center.
From a connoisseur and a musician standpoint, they're all truly great musical instruments, and not necessarily the purest example with every screw perfect.
No, I was
some of
never.
them are. But some of them are.
No, some
yes.
of them are amazing that way, but it was never what I was looking for. And a lot of these guitars, to me, are the ones that I sit down and play because they're just right. Everything's right about them. And, you know, if I'm sitting around the house, those are the ones that I would pick up and just let it ring. You just let it talk to you a little bit. And
Richard, you collect other works of art, arts and crafts, for sure.
Yeah. I think there's an affinity to it. There's a kind of a directness and honesty about it. At the same time, the arts and crafts movement was one about simplicity and directness of expression, design. It was the workmanship of a man's hands on the wood. You know, you certainly get that feeling in guitar.
I've always been a great believer that guitars, all musical instruments, they encompass the design aesthetics of the time period they're made in. And whether it's an Art Deco D'Angelico or that sort of very modern Victorian blending of a very early Gibson, this is pretty cool. I wonder if you can tell me about this guitar.
I've always been a little scared of them, I think, in some way, because they're so odd looking. And they're big and they're awkward. They don't sit really easily in your body. They're just kind of funny looking things. And it's the way it's strung. It's the length of the strings. You can bend them in some other way. And these pickups are different. They've got their own sound.
The whole guitar is different.
But this came from the design team at Gibson. It was experimenting with a lot of different stuff.
The thing about this guitar is after looking at all your guitars and then going home, this was the one I kept thinking about. And this is like completely straight. It's all here. They made Firebird 1s, 3s, 5s, and 7s. And they're all nice guitars, but the 5 is the one. The 5's got all the stuff. As a kid, seeing the Stone and Keith and Brian Jones both had these.
Oh, funny.
I think they had 7s, the triple pickup ones, but I was like, oh man, what is that? It looks like it's just gonna take off and, you know.
What does Johnny Winter play? Which one?
Johnny played a 5.
It's a 5?
Yeah. This is a killer.
Richard, when you first showed me this guitar, you had said, this is a darn important guitar. And it has great history. Not only is it one of the only 81 made in 1958, but it's got great provenance to it.
It came to me through Richie Friedman, We Buy and Sell. You know, I bought one of my first really good guitars from his father, Stuyvesant Music, which is across the street from where Richie had his place, but it was like a takeout, so small. And I was doing two things. I had a dual Showman amp in a little apartment down in a 5th floor walk-up in the village. So I was getting rid of that. But there was a guitar when there was a Chet Atkins that I wanted. And it wasn't one of the real F-holes, it was with a decal F-holes on it. It sounded good to me. You know, it sounded kind of like Buffalo Springfield. And,
Birds again.
Yeah.
David Crosby was playing.
Yeah, it was he. And it was Albert King's guitar, who was Mr. Flying V.
Mr. Flying V.
This is one of the first experimental numbers.
Right.
And the letter that I have from Gibson said this was the second of their experimental numbers before they hit on the design. I think this is actually the same design. So this was the correct, what ended up being the selected design.
This wound up being the right thing, the way the heel is joined.
GE, the first players, I mean, the two most iconic players were Albert King and Lonnie Mack.
Right.
For the Flying V.
Right, absolutely.
So this was Albert's guitar, and somewhere along the line, his family took it to Gibson to have it refinished, which was probably not the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, probably not.
But they did it and cleaned it up. You can still see some of the wear is in the right place. If you look at the fingerboard, you can see it was left-handed. The fingers dense and are in the right place for that. But they acknowledged that this is absolutely one of their first experiments, and the one that ended up being the design, the preferred design. But this thing screams. I mean,
Yeah, they're amazing sounding.
on stage, you used it?
Yeah, I used it when I was on Saturday Night Live a lot.
I always remember you had the Telecaster on that, and you had the
Red 335. Everybody
Yeah.
remembers that Red 335, which I still have. That's a great guitar. I still have that Telecaster. I still have that Red 335.
These, I must say that these 30s, 40s Little Martins are the most beautiful instruments. They're delicate. They're very thin-skinned. You can play them hard, but you gotta respect them. And the ones that have survived to this point and have picked up those decades of soul are really amazing things. Their voices are totally unique. Probably won't ever happen again. So if you're into acoustic guitars, this is it. These are the guitars.
Good guitar.
No, I absolutely love them. The very first auction I ever did in 1987, I had a gaggle of small-bodied Martins, and a dealer came in and said, you know, you'll never sell these. Everyone wants dreadnoughts. And I said, I think we're going to find ourselves gravitating towards them. And we've certainly seen collectors go in that direction. It's the size of guitar I prefer to play.
The Dreadnoughts can't get that sound.
I would agree.
This is closer to the human voice, I think.
It is.
They all sounded differently, and this was the one that had it. It sounded better than the 30s guitars that I have.
Yeah, this is a 0021. It's got the snowflake inlays.
Yeah, very nice inlays.
It's just beautiful.
This guitar reminds me of Peter Yarrow.
Is that what he played?
Certainly the look of it.
Post-war, we refer to them as New Yorkers, these small-bodied, slot-head, 12 fret.
Right.
And here is sort of the earlier Gibson equivalent, this LO in black.
I can't. It's dangerous for me to be
Pull it
touching
out.
these
I wanna hear it.
guitars
I wanna hear
because
it.
I can't.
I want to hear both of these.
I get a little bit covetous of my own stuff. I think,
Well, you should.
I'm not going to.
And I believe you actually played this and it's in one of your movies.
I was playing slide in Runaway Bride. It's a version of Little Maggie. This is a very sweet guitar.
These are great, these little Gibsons from the 30s.
It is, and it is an equivalent. I mean, it doesn't have the sweetness of the Martins, but it's a nice guitar. It feels nice.
They got a
The
snap
neck is
to
nice.
them and very bluesy.
Yeah, I mean,
these
you want to
guitars.
play this with a pick. You want to hit into it hard.
And it's got what may well be the
I
original.
think it's the original rope on it.
Yeah, I mean this is what would come back.
Yes.
In the same era, I would put this early 30s, 12 fret, the classic Gibson black finish.
Inexpensive guitar.
At the time.
Stenciled logo
Yep.
rather than inlay.
These kind of guitars, it's like probably 1 out of 10 has the right sound. And you hear it immediately. Sold.
Good, what's that?
Yeah, that's what it's meant to do. And it sounded good with a slide because it has a very throaty sound to it. The frets are all in the right place, the intonation's right. So you're going to hear it immediately.
Round,
Yeah,
open,
really,
bell-like.
really high
It's
quality
warm.
instrument.
Warm. The Gibsons were never warm like that.
Yeah, man. Isn't that?
Meant to be played with fingers too, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think the guitar in general was meant to be played with the fingers.
Yeah?
Yeah. Even now when I'm playing
Even
live electrics, if I can keep with my fingers, when you think, oh, I'm playing, I can't play fast enough, and then if you hear a recording of it, you're already playing. You're playing too many notes anyway, so better to slow down, play with your fingers. It sounds better.
What would be Richard Gere's perfect guitar?
I don't know. What was that? A young man with a horn.
Yeah.
Remember they say about him? He was trying to hit that note, but he didn't know that note didn't exist on a trumpet. And that's probably one of the great things about there's no perfect guitar. Clapton went through guitar after guitar. You go through guitar after guitar. You're hearing something, and then you hear something else, and oh. The world unfolds that way. There's always something new. There's a new area that opens up in your mind, and your perceptions, and aesthetics that maybe wasn't there before.